Hi, this is Erica with the Prospect Heights Public Library, here to read another chapter of a great book to you for our Get Hooked series. Today I'm going to be reading from Verify by Joelle Charbonneau. It is a dystopian set in the not so near future. It actually takes place in Chicago, and it's a little bit Fahrenheit 451 meets 1984. So if you're into dystopias or just really good action novels, this is a good one for you. So without further ado, the first chapter from Verify. Chapter 1. My stool creaks in the slate gray silence. I stretch, then turn once again to stare at the partially finished canvas. A single desk lamp bathes the picture in a soft light. Shadows dance outside of the light's glow as I attempt to imagine what my mother was creating when she placed the geometric lines on the canvas. Some of them, around the edge of the canvas, are thick and strong. Others move at a diagonal and seem to fade into the empty white area in the center, as if disappearing into some mysterious place that only an artist could understand. Some lines at this edge are silver. The ones in the center are burnished gold. Small red stars in the corner of the image make me believe that there would have been more color had Mom had more time. Now it is up to me to take the next step. Looking down at the screen in my hand, I pick up my stylus and begin to draw on the copy I made of my mother's work, just as I have done every single day of the last 11 weeks and 6 days. I extend the lines, add detail, match the color of red she used with one from my palette, and begin once again to draw. Sunlight creeps through the windows of my mother's studio, telling me that the time to get ready for school is approaching, but I don't move. I stay seated on the rickety stool my mother had set up for me years ago when I begged to be allowed to watch her wield her brushes, a medium no longer used by artists, but one my mother refused to completely abandon for the electronic screens and the high-tech accessories that could do everything the tools on her desk did. They can't do everything, I remember her telling me as she frowned into my eyes. The things on the screen aren't real. What we can touch, that's real. Maybe I should have asked what she meant, or maybe she should have just told me. If she had been clearer, maybe I wouldn't be here right now trying to finish this painting for her. I push a strand of hair that has escaped my ponytail out of my eyes and return to my sketch, working from the edges inward. I add a door in the empty space my mother left in the center of the work. The door is partially opened, as if waiting for someone to push it and walk through. Over half my attempts have this door. Although until now the entryway has been closed. This time, without thinking, I painted it open. Streams of golden sunlight through Mom's studio window chase the rest of the shadows away. I layer color and shading until finally I cock my head to the side and study my efforts. It's interesting. If I brought it to my art class today, Mrs. Ruderin would certainly praise my talent, something my mother rarely did. In the middle of the other lines, the entryway seems almost otherworldly, with a slight arch I have added at the top and the light coming from somewhere inside. The picture is the most compelling of the dozens I have created thus far, with the red patch on the side acting almost like a warning to keep someone from walking through the door. And still, I know it's wrong. I push the erase figure on the screen. My part of the image disappears in a blink. As if it never existed, my mother's work remains. She's gone, but that is what is left of her, and that's all that's left of me. I rub my eyes, pick up my stylus, and touch it to the center of the screen to begin again. Wait. A persistent beeping sound echoes from above me. I slide off the stool and hurry through the door of my mother's studio, into the hall, towards the stairs. I've been so busy working on the puzzle of Mom's painting that I lost track of the time. The beeping gets louder. The fact that it doesn't stop before I reach the landing tells me exactly what I will find as I step across the threshold of my parents' room. My nose wrinkles. The wailing of the alarm continues. I step on a crumpled shirt and kick aside a pair of wadded trousers as I pad across the carpet toward the nightstand. A push of a button and the room goes blissfully silent, but a look at the clock's display tells me I've spent far more time in my mother's studio than I'd intended. My father isn't the only one who's going to be late at this rate. Dad, I say, turning toward the bed to where my father still sleeps. His breathing is raspy. His dark, normally wavy hair is plastered against his head. The mouth that once so quickly curled into smiles is mashed against a dark blue spot on the pillow, and a large, empty Go cup rests next to one of his hands. Dad, get up. He doesn't move. You slept through your alarm, I say louder. If you don't get up now, you're going to be late for work. And it wouldn't be the first time. I stalk across the room and tug open a window to let the fresh, almost summer air chase the heat and smell out of the room. Dad, I yell. When he snorts and rolls over, I head into the bathroom and turn the shower on. Then I grab a stiff washcloth, run it under ice-cold water from the sink, and stomp back to drop it on his face. The cold washcloth does the trick. Dad yelps, sits up, and snatches the wet washcloth from his forehead. Dad blinks his puffy red eyes several times before shifting them to look at me. The shower's already running. You can't be late, I say as I wait for him. If I leave now, there's a good chance he'll just lie back down. It's happened before. I'm sorry, he says, running a hand through his hair before pushing to his feet. I wait for him to sway, but he's steady, and despite the swollen redness, his eyes are mostly alert. It's an improvement over the last week. Maybe I should find hope in that. But I'm not ready for hope. Be downstairs in 15 minutes, I say, heading for my room so I can get myself ready for another day. I brush my hair, start to pull it neatly back into a ponytail, as is my typical style, but one look at my eyes in the mirror has me leaving it loose. Hopefully the fatigue won't be as obvious that way. The smell of coffee hits me. My father gives me what I'm sure he thinks is a cheerful smile, but it comes across as a little bit more desperate. His hair is still wet from the shower. His face is shaved and he's dressed in a blue shirt and gray jacket that I picked up from the cleaner yesterday. His eyes still look a little tired, but they are way clearer than they have been in the past few weeks. If I didn't know better, I would think that he was back to the dad I used to know. He holds out a green apple, my usual choice for breakfast, a peace offering. I shake my head and grab a banana, even though it has brown patches on the skin. My father sighs, turns back to the counter, and pours himself a mug of coffee. In an upbeat voice, he says, "Only one day left of class. Has the city art program made their decision yet?" "I don't know," I say, taking a seat at the butcher block table. "I didn't apply." "Wait a minute." Dad sets his mug down on the counter. "Why didn't you apply? You worked so hard on your portfolio pieces. What happened?" "You know what happened." Mom died, and my dad started to drink. We did what we had to do in order to get from day to day. Those things did not include essay writing and portfolio development. Before he can try to initiate some kind of father-daughter heart-to-heart thing, I shove back my chair, spring to my feet, and cross to the garbage. It's okay. I drop the overly ripe banana into the can. There's another project I'm working on. I'll have plenty to keep me occupied this summer without being a part of city art. And I can always apply next year if someone drops out. So it's fine, I lie. Look, I've got to go. I can give you a ride to school, Dad offers. No, he can't. Not without being late for work. It's an empty offer, and I can see from the slump of his shoulders that I'm not the only one who knows it. More than anything, I want to call him out. But I bite back the angry words and instead say, "Rose said she might wait to walk for me. She'll never forgive me if I don't show up." I shift the bag on my shoulder and make a beeline for the door. My hand is on the knob when my mother says, "Mary, I'm sorry. I should have asked before about city art. I know your future is on the line, and I'm screwing it up. I'm trying to do better. It's just..." I glance over my shoulder. My father looks down at the coffee in his hand, so I won't see the tears. But I see them anyway, and even if I couldn't, I can hear the sorrow thickening his voice when he quietly admits, "I miss her." Everything inside me freezes. The red-hot anger I stoke like a life-giving fire suddenly extinguishes, leaving me cold and weak and raw. I can't speak. I can't breathe. It's like the moment I relive every night when I try to fall asleep, the one where the police officers come to the door with their serious faces and stiff words, telling us about the vehicle that slid on a patch of black ice and couldn't stop in time. They were sorry. Everyone was sorry. My friends, my teachers, our neighbors, the guy behind the counter at the market 2 streets over. Everyone told me first with their words, and now months later with a shake of the head how sorry they were that the person who drove the vehicle too fast was alive and well, and my mother, who had simply been standing on the sidewalk in front of a potential new design project, was dead. We're all sorry. So what? It doesn't change a thing. I'll see you tonight. I yank the door open and head outside. I hate the pain my father is in. I hate that I understand why he drinks. And I hate knowing that if I didn't force him out of bed every morning, he would drink himself into oblivion to forget what he had lost. His work gave him 2 weeks off after the accident, and people looked the other way for the month after his dad showed up late or in the same clothes he'd worn the day before. Finally, Dad's boss came to the house with a warning that he'd have to do better or he would lose his job. The drinking continued. Little by little, day by day, Dad seemed to be getting better, surrounded by more grays and dark blues than shrouded in empty black. I hurry down the steps and around the house toward the street. A squirrel darts across the sidewalk in front of me and bolts under the moving van parked in front of the house 2 doors down. I used to watch every new person moving into the house on the block for signs of kids my age. Now I was just glad to not see any signs of teenagers in the back of the van. Robins chirp in the branches of the fairly young trees lining the street. The city's gardeners planted them only 2 years ago. Between the golden sunshine, this being the final week of school, and my dad's less glassy eyes, I should be feeling positive about the day. Maybe if Dad hadn't brought up the city art program, I would find it easier to be happy about the little things. But thoughts of all the work I have done and the time wasted, what I had wanted so badly until my mother's death, made it hard to find the good in anything. I'd worked for months on my portfolio so that I could be one of the 4 16-year-olds chosen to intern alongside the city's design team for the next 2 years. Being chosen isn't just an honor. Being chosen gives a student the chance to work with the very best imaginations in the city, and maybe even assist in designing one or more of the city's ongoing projects. It's one of the sure ways to gain a coveted slot as a visual arts major. Without a visual arts degree, it's impossible to secure a job as a working artist here in Chicago's City Pride Department, or in similar departments in the other cities across the country. Of all the government jobs, the City Pride Department were among the most important and prestigious. Years ago, a pilot program, spearheaded by the best artists in the country, was launched here in Chicago, under the theory that people who lived in beautiful surroundings felt better about themselves and their futures, thereby causing them to make positive choices that would benefit not only themselves, but the community they were so proud of. It was a radical idea, but the new City Pride Department was determined to make every part of the city beautiful, especially those most touched by neglect and crime, because the people living on those streets needed to see that they were worthy of beauty. And it was working, bit by bit. The citizens here blossomed under the inspiration of the city's new beauty, but the project is never ending because the city is so large and always changing. So often my mother worked long into the night to create the perfect mural for the side of a neighborhood market, or select the ideal color palette for a sign intended to draw the community into embracing a new park. She had even received a silver plaque last year to celebrate the work she had done. She was one of the top designers. The work she uploaded into the National Elevation Through Arts database was some of the most often downloaded for use around the country. Was it any wonder that I wanted to capture beauty in an image the way she did? Everyone assumes my mother wanted me to submit to the summer program, that she encouraged me to walk in her talented footsteps. I've let them think it's because it's easier than talking about the way, in the months before she died, she pursed her lips whenever I asked her opinion about my work. "You sure that's the color palette you want to use, Mary? Is that really what you want to work on, or is that just what you think you should be working on?" Then finally, the one I'll never forget, when she fastened her hair at the nape of her neck with a long-handled stapled paintbrush and turned to me, eyes shimmering with disappointment. "Maybe you should think about doing an internship at Gloss instead. Designing layouts requires a sharp eye, and there's a lot less competition for those positions than there is for government jobs." These words made it clear to me that she thought I wasn't good enough. Maybe if I hadn't shut myself off from her from that moment on, maybe I would have found out why. Maybe, hey, I almost gave up on you. I look up and spot my best friend Rose, standing in the shade of a tree. "Isaac decided you weren't coming and went on ahead. He's going through a self-important phase because Dad got him a summer job with city security. I'm not sure what's so amazing about filling in for security officers who are spending the day at the beach, but what do I know?" Rose rolls her eyes, which tells me everything. I need to know about her opinion of her older brother's plans. Then she frowns. "Actually, it's good Isaac left, because you look terrible." I shrug. I could take offense, but she's just telling the truth. "Well, you look perfect," I respond, "so we balance each other out." "I'm not kidding, Mary." Rose steps toward me. Her intense brown eyes narrow as she studies my face. "You didn't sleep again." "I slept. Sort of." When Rose purses her lips and gives me her "don't mess with me" frown, I add, "Okay, so I woke up extra early and couldn't get back to sleep. It's no big deal." "You keep saying that it's no big deal, but when was the last time you slept for an entire night?" I wish I could answer that, but it's been too long for me to remember. "I've had some bad dreams," I say. Pity swims in her eyes, then vanishes almost as quickly as it appeared. She gives a shake of her head as she flips open the lid of one of her dozens of makeup compacts. "Lucky for you, I have just the thing to fix you." There's no fixing me. Even if I slept for a week, I would never look like Rose. "You don't need to go to the trouble," I tell her. Rose grabs my arm as I try to sidestep her. "If you don't want your teachers calling your father out of concern for your well-being, or worse yet, sending you to the counselor, you stand still and let me work. We're going to be late." "Not if you keep still and follow my instructions," Rose says. "If we don't get to class in time for the second bell, I'll call either one of my parents will get us out of trouble. Deal?" I sigh, knowing there really isn't much of a choice. Deal. "Good, this won't take long. Hold this." She hands me the makeup kit, and I can tell from the colors that half of what she has with her has been bought specifically for me. Knowing that Rose has been worried enough to go out of her way to get these things ties my throat in a knot. Tears prick the back of my eyes. "Stop moving," Rose chastises. She dabs a sponge under my eye and on several other spots on my face. Rose attacks my eyes with a pencil and eyeshadow and actually growls at me when I try to move away before she puts the finishing touches on her design. Finally, she gives a satisfied smile and holds a mirror up to my face. There's no denying that I'm a genius. My mother and gloss editorials have taught me well. She isn't lying. My skin is no longer blotchy. I seem almost normal, as long as no one looks too hard. The anger and fatigue and distrust in my eyes cannot be smoothed away with powder and lip gloss. Those are beyond even my best friend's ministrations. Thanks, I say, lifting my eyes to her. I owe you. Real friends don't keep score. Rose shoves the makeup case back into her bag. So what happened this morning? She asks. What do you mean? I wait for a red sports car to pass and cross the street with Rose beside me. Mary, I yelled your name 3 times before you noticed me. That's not like you. I take a deep breath and say, Dad asked about my submission to the city art program this morning. It's the first time he brought it up since before. I walk faster as if I can escape the ache that comes with the reminder of my mother's death. He was disappointed when I told him I didn't finish my submission. I guess I thought in some ways he would be relieved. Why would you think that? He never goes in Mom's studio. He took her award off the shelf in the living room. He can't bring himself to look at her art or talk to anyone she used to work with. And when I start sketching or even talk about one of my assignments for art class, he goes into another room. Your father's hurting, Rose says quietly, but he knows how important your art is. He's not like my dad, determined to make everyone just like him. Your dad would never want you to give up something that makes you happy. Speaking of the city art program, I know you said your portfolio wasn't finished, but the submission deadline was 2 weeks ago. I walk even faster as our school and the dozens of cars and buses navigating the street in front of the red brick building come into sight. It's over. Maybe I'd still get into one of the college art programs, but my chances of becoming a city art program designer now were low, and I only had myself to blame. Nothing is ever over until you admit defeat. Can you drop it? I ask. Please? I haven't had a chance to ask you about whether you convinced your dad to let you work at Gloss instead of at City Hall this summer. Did you see the new issue? Mom said she sent one to your account. She wanted to know if you have ideas for the logo redesign. She wants something more youthful and thinks a younger designer's point of view will help. But no fair changing the subject. We can talk about me and my summer job later after the first bell rings, which cuts off whatever Rose was going to say. Side by side, we race across the street and down the sidewalk, dodging the other stragglers and the large outdoor screens that flank the door entry like sentries. This one to the right is dedicated to a running display of times and dates for school and student-appropriate city events. The other is set to local news, as there are 2 screens in the cafeteria. As Principal Velshi says in every assembly, the only way we can be sure what we want to do when we go out into the world is to first understand what is happening in it. The truth, however, is that no one really cares what the chirpy anchor with the plastic-looking hair is saying about the stepped-up recycling effort. Assistant Principal Schmidt is near the door, shouting over the din for everyone to hurry up. Breathing hard, Rose pushes her way forward. I'm about to follow when a bus pulls away from the curb. Out of the corner of my eye, I catch the flash of red lights. I turn, thinking the light must be from one of the announcement screens, but it's not. The flashing is coming from atop a police car in the distance. I stop walking as men in charcoal gray suits shove a struggling person with magenta and black streaked hair toward an open police car door. One of the suits backhands the man he's escorting across the cheek. I flinch and hold my breath as I keep watching. The suit yells and points toward the street. He's too far away for me to make out what he said, but several navy blue uniformed officers nod and race towards some bushes near the edge of the street. Mary, come on! Rose tugs my arm, and I start moving again toward the front entrance. I glance back in time to see the suited men shove the cuffed, shouting perpetrator into the police car and slam the door. Just before I step into the school, a uniformed officer pulls something out of a bush. As I race down the hall, trying to beat the next bell, I picture the scene from across the street and the item the officer waved in triumph at the suits. It wasn't something anyone used anymore. Obsolete, but not illegal. So why, I wonder, as the bell rings just as I'm sliding into my seat, did the police arrest someone over a piece of paper? So that is the first chapter of Verify by Joelle Charbonneau. If you'd like to finish reading the book yourself, we have copies available all times on Hoopla, our digital database for online checkout, or you can call the library or request a book online and we will set you up with a curbside pickup appointment for you to come get your book. Hope you had a wonderful day.